Dr. Armin Krishnan, an author and pioneering scholar on neuroweapons, illuminates the profound ethical and strategic perils of brain-based technologies in contemporary warfare in this Gold Conversation.
My name is Armin Krishnan. I'm an associate professor at East Carolina University. And obviously, I'm speaking not on behalf of East Carolina University. I'm just voicing my personal opinions. I'm an academic. I did my MA in Germany. I specialized in political philosophy. Then I came to the United Kingdom. I did another master degree in intelligence. And I continued with a PhD in security studies, which focused on the military-industrial complex. And now I'm focused, generally speaking, on military technology and ethics, but also I have an interest in covert action, intelligence, and the future of warfare.
I know you have a new book out. Do you want to talk about Havana syndrome a bit?
Yes, of course. So it started probably around late 2016 when diplomats in Cuba fell ill. So there were a couple of American cases, and there was a larger number of cases, more than a dozen in spring 2017. There was a big mystery as to what was going on, and the story was leaking to the press around August 2017. And the original version of the story was that the diplomats were attacked by an unknown sonic weapon, and they believed that either the Cubans were responsible or the Russians. And then there were a couple of investigations into what was called a Havana syndrome. They call it now an anomalous health incidents or AHIs. And yeah, there are a lot of skeptics still. They believe that this may have other unrelated causes, natural causes, and that it wouldn't amount to a deliberate attack on the diplomats. And yeah, there were investigations by the State Department. The CIA was looking into it early on. The FBI was doing an investigation. There were two studies by the Jasons, which is a scientific group within the Pentagon. There was a CDC study, and there was an investigation by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And they came to different kinds of conclusions. So there was a notable study by the National Academy of Sciences, which suggested that there could be a physical origin, that it could have been caused by pulsed microwaves, and that this kind of technology has been around since the 1960s. So it's not something completely new, but it is new that it has been weaponized and used against US government personnel covertly. So that is an assumption still. We don't have any definitive proof, but I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that strongly suggests that there have been deliberate attacks.
Now, this was in 2016, and you've been in this arena for quite some time. Where are we in 2025 with this type of technology?
Well, that's very hard to say because so much of it is classified. So you can trace it back to MK Ultra. So I wrote a book that was published coincidentally in early 2017, Military Neuroscience and Neurowarfare. Yeah, I was looking into MK Ultra, so that is mind control experimentation, and they were using drugs, the LSD experiments. I mean, it's well known. But there was also another component to it, and that was the use of directed energy, in particular microwaves. So they were microwaving all kinds of animals to see whether there would be kind of behavioral effects. And that was also happening around the time when DARPA was getting interested in it. So there was the Pandora project from 1965 to 1970, when they were also looking into the use of microwaves for anti-personnel type of weaponry. And that was in connection to the Moscow signal. So that was discovered in late 1950s. So the Soviets were bombarding the US embassy in Moscow with microwaves, and that became more and more intense. And there was no clear reason why they were doing it. And there were reports that embassy personnel was getting sick. And that eventually affected even the ambassadors in the Moscow embassy. And three of them got very seriously sick. Two of them died. And the third one was also having cancer. And yeah, there were reports from the embassy that many people got sick for unknown reasons. And Kissinger was trying to keep it out of the public. So he was trying to suppress the story. But in 1972, it leaked to the press. And there was a lot of outcry, and there was some pressure on the US government to do something about it. And I believe they've made an agreement with the Soviets to reduce the exposure of the microwaves. So from 1976, it was massively reduced, and then, I mean, it continued into the 1980s still. But they were conducting a study at Johns Hopkins University that was suggesting that maybe nothing is going on here. So they couldn't find a whole lot of evidence that there was a statistically higher incidence rate of cancer or other severe illnesses in the group of US diplomats. But there were other opinions that the study was not quite accurate. So there were major flaws in the study, and there's the claim that they deliberately fixed the results to make it appear that US diplomats were not hurt back then. So we are talking about the 1960s and 1970s. And yeah, we hear something about non-lethal weapons development, both in the Soviet Union and in the United States, interest in directed energy weapons, even anti-personnel applications. And yeah, and then it kind of got so highly classified that we haven't heard much since the 1980s, what's really going on in that field. And yeah, we hear about directed energy weapons mostly in the context of anti-material applications, or the mostly it's the high-powered lasers that make the news. So you can shoot down missiles with the lasers, and then you have the high-powered microwaves that you can use for damaging electronics. So it can produce like an EMP effect. So they've developed those weapons. What's controversial is the bioeffects. So do some of those weapons also have bioeffects? And what are they? And has it been weaponized? So do we have anti-personnel directed energy weapons? The only ones we know about is the sound weapons. So these are things like the long-range acoustic device. So it's directional sound. It's very powerful and can transmit sound over like 3 kilometers. And it can project sound also in a narrower beam, which is quite interesting. And yeah, it mainly uses the loud sound to cause pain. And obviously, if you're exposed for a longer time to that, then you can suffer hearing loss. But there's not much knowledge beyond that, what kind of bioeffects that could have. So there's a lot of speculation about acoustic weapons.
What specifically have you been finding in your research that surprises you or causes you concern at the human level for global humanity?
Well, what I find most concerning is the brain-computer interfaces, so that you can connect the brain to a computer. and that there could be an exchange of information. So one thing is that you could read all the brain processes going on. So you could decipher thoughts as well using that technology. And you could also insert information into the brain, causing visual and auditory hallucinations. So that has been demonstrated in public research. So it's not really a conspiracy theory. They have a project at DARPA that's called Deep Brain Stimulation. I think it was announced back in 2012, and it's supposedly therapeutic. So it's like a pacemaker for the brain. So if people suffer from depression and trauma, and the implanted electrodes can stimulate certain brain areas to relieve that condition. And yeah, you could potentially do a lot more with it. And we're seeing that with the Neuralink research. So you could restore senses. You could make a paralyzed person use their limbs again. So that is technically possible. I mean, at least in the future. And what my concern here is that you can also totally control people. You can insert thoughts into them, and you may even take control over their motor functions. They become like robots, biological robots. So that is really the scariest possibility that I see behind the technology.
Do you feel like we're going more in that direction with these weapons than in the direction of using this technology for the benefit of all?
Well, obviously, there's always two sides to a technology. And so you can use it for good or you can use it for evil.
Mhm.
And there is an argument to be made that this technology can be used for enhancement. So it can potentially improve human capacity and go beyond the natural limits of what humans can do. And that is portrayed as something that is very positive, and we should embrace it. I'm not quite sure whether I agree with that, probably not, because the risks are simply too high. So the risk of abuse. So once you start modifying a human being, you you're altering that person. In my view, at some point, you're no longer dealing with a human being because you're depriving that person of essential things that make us human, including the capacity for free will and also our natural limits. So that is a huge concern for me. But then there's the much darker side, which is the weaponization. So we are not hearing a whole lot about how you can weaponize it, but it's pretty obvious to me. And once people have a brain chip and are connected to a computer, they could be potentially hacked. So even if there was no nefarious intent in the beginning to introduce those brain chips, there's always a potential that it can be abused later on. I mean, we know that computers are not secure, so everything can be hacked, and especially when it's networked, connected with Wi-Fi or things like that, it can be easily hacked. In principle, I mean. So making brain chips or neural devices that are secure would be a huge priority. And then you also have to consider how much can we trust the manufacturers. I mean, you're aware with the whole debate, Chinese electronics. So we are producing a lot in other countries, and they may insert backdoors into our devices, our electronics, and then they can potentially cause damage to what we are doing. And when we are merging ourselves with technology, so introducing it into our body and our brain, and then we are opening us up to be hackable animals, as it was called.
which is terrifying. I want to ask you, I mean, I feel you're very brave to be researching in this arena and being as verbal as you are about your findings. And where do you find support? And where do you hope to go in the future with your work and your research?
Well, obviously, I have a personal interest in it. I think it's very important to talk about it. I mean, I've always had an interest in science fiction and future technology, and I was used to be very optimistic about the future, and I'm no longer very optimistic about it because I see huge dangers. And I try to do my part in warning the world. I mean, there are lots of people who now speak out about what we are seeing in the world and how badly things are developing. So we should be living in a world that is getting better, right? But we're not. Actually, a lot of things are getting worse. And we have to ask ourselves, why? Why do the things keep getting worse? If we have better technology and we should be now smarter, but we're not. We should be healthier, but we're not. So we need to change something. And I think that requires more people to become aware of these issues. And well, as I said, I'm just an academic. I'm I don't get that much support. I mean, it's a very small field in my discipline. I think very few of my colleagues are interested in those kinds of things. But I try to reach beyond academia because let's face it, academia lags behind major trends. So, so they always come 10 years after the main things have already happened. And that's kind of sad.
It is truly, Armin, I'm so grateful that you're doing the work that you are, and I'm sure that listeners are going to want to know more. So, where do they go to find your body of work and to get more information about your findings?
Well, yeah, I've published a couple of books, so altogether seven, and you can find them on Amazon. And I'm working on another book, so hopefully that would be coming out next year. It's going to be different. It's more about geopolitics. So the decline of the American Empire, and I try to connect it to my previous work as well. And I publish in journals and in edited volumes. I'm not active on social media. Uh, I don't like it. So that's how you can find me.
And I have one more question. Did you ever think of writing fantasy? You said that you're always drawn to sci-fi. Do you have a script in you?
No, I haven't thought about writing fiction. I mean, the world is exciting as it is already. It's very hard to come up with anything that goes beyond how crazy the world already is. Um, I mean, seriously, you just have to follow the various kinds of news, and and you'll find so many strange stories that do not seem to make much sense. And making sense of that out of that is just very hard. So I think any kind of fictional account of the world of the future already falls behind where we are already.
That's so insightful. I'm so grateful you came today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.